Dave Nemo Weekends. Today's program features Jimmy Mack
and Claire Marie.
She came from planet Claire. I knew she came from there. She drove a Plymouth satellite, faster than the speed of light.
Maury Rogow is a digital pioneer with several feature films to his credit and the founder and CEO of LA's RIP Media Group, working in both animation and live action film. And you can find out more about them at ripmediagroup.com. Welcome, Maury. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing good. We're really excited to talk to you about animation. We've never gotten to really dive into that with a guest on this show before, but it's always been a favorite of ours to discuss, as well as our listeners. Right now, people are kind of looking at the film and TV industry as being on hold because of the pandemic, but animation's not, is it?
No, not at all. The film and, the TV industry is on hold for obvious reasons. You got Brad Pitt coming in and, 40 people around him to take care of him and, be on set and that kind of thing. And that's not allowed now. So it took about a month. I think everybody went into shock. What are we going to do? And including us, not necessarily shocked. We just started saying, hey, we have an alternative here. You can do that in animation. Let's animate that person. Let's animate the characters. Let's bring this thing to life. And by the way, you can now do anything you want. Hey, remember that helicopter scene you wanted? Or let's put this person in outer space. We can make that happen. So we started proposing bigger and bigger ideas, to different, kind of customers and studios and things like that. And they started going for them. So the other cool thing about the animation, business right now is people can work from anywhere. So a lot of, basically everybody is working from their houses. And feeding the information back every night. They're creating their characters, they're creating the backgrounds, they're creating good stories and that kind of thing and feeding it in. So there was a blip for a few weeks, but now things are rolling. Things are really going well.
Wait, you mean to tell me that people are generating loads of content from their own home and actually making a living off of it? I don't know anybody like that in my life. I can't think of anybody right now at this moment, which does point to a great question, though. I mean, this basically, you in kind of reach the destination of the next question. Animation starts off as really there are times when Disney back in the 30s would make a ton of money and barely break even because of the cost of what it cost to construct quality animation. Can you kind of draw a line from that point to what you just described as the reality and how we get here?
Yeah, that's really great that you knew that. Most people don't realize that Disney and Warner Brothers, it was like with Bugs Bunny, was the barber of Seville. Warner Brothers was almost going broke at that time. That movie saved them. But sorry, that was thanks to Bugs. I love Bugs. And if you go back in the day, it was frame by frame. I mean, you had how many artists literally drawing on, it was cells. It was basically pieces of paper, but sort of see-through pieces of paper. 30 frames a second just to have a second. You had 30 pieces of art just slightly moving, right? And then you had to do that for an entire, 5-minute cartoon, 20 minutes, half hour, hour and a half. So, yeah, it was extremely labor intensive. And then what happened is, we get more and more technology and people start loving this more and more. So, kind of the workflow changed and you have technology, you have things that are coming into play that make things a lot easier. But you also, it's not like expenses all of a sudden went down for these big, huge movies. I mean, you look at, like Disney now, like Frozen or, DreamWorks How to Train Your Dragon, Monsters Incorporated. That's $1 million a minute, roughly. $1 million a minute to make those movies. And then you have to double that to do the sales and marketing or advertising and marketing for that. So the films are really big. But at the lower end, you've got a lot of choices that are not so expensive, so, your next, music video from your favorite band probably can be animated. A lot of the commercials on TV and, videos when you go to websites, those are going to be animated for the next year and maybe, hopefully, longer than that. Because you got all these different styles now that are much less expensive. So it's, you've got things like, whiteboard animation, which is literally kind of like a storyboard where it's, hand on paper, or it's really digital is the secret, but, hand on, a whiteboard in a sense, like a marker, drawing things out and drawing out scenes would be some of the most simple, up to motion graphics, and then your 3D animation that's really, really, kind of pops off the screen, which looks awesome. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, and actually, it brings me to a kind of a subset question of the question I just asked you. So, right around the late '60s, early '70s, and throughout the '70s, there's this sudden urge to begin to use animation. There's always been animation for adults in one form or another, in kind of on the sly and on the down low. But you get a real kind of urge late '60s throughout the '70s. People like Ralph Bakshi and even some of the stuff inspired by R. Crumb. It begins to make its way onto late-night television and to kind of cult classic movies. Those movies actually are asking a lot of the animation that the skill and the technique aren't. Do you find the history of animation gets pushed forward by the narrative needs of the creators, and is that what has caused some of the technical advancements?
Wow, what a great question. Yeah, so it all comes back to kind of a mantra that I always go back to when we're creating things, or anybody's creating things, which is, what's the story? And what do I want people, or, what do you want people to know? And what do you want them to feel? Not just about the movie, every single scene has to push forward. So if you're talking about film, talking about the TV shows, I think, even look at some of those late night shows like Carson and some of those things, they started to incorporate some of this, which is, you got to engage people now so they're here for the next minute, because competition started in, because creativity is always there, but it's always about a great story. So you're talking about the narrative, where am I starting? What's my end line? And then if you think about, narrative structure and story structure, what's my character, or what's, the person that I either hate at the beginning or I really like at the beginning? How are they going to change over the course of this story? Whether it's 1 minute or whether it's an hour and a half. What's the narrative structure? Where are we going? What do I want people to walk away with? What do I want them to feel? If you can actually make somebody feel something, they're going to remember you. And if they remember you, they'll tell their friends about it, or they'll come back and watch again, and really pick up a great story. So I think everything you said is actually right on the money there. And that's why things started to take off, because people realized, hey, you can actually use animation either in pieces to grab people's, visual attention, or just with a great story and move things along. It's not just sort of an add-in, or it's sort of at that time, before that, it was maybe it's a little add-in, a little bit of fun animation for one particular scene, or it's, $1 million a minute Disney stuff. And then they started, pushing things through 60s, 70s. You're exactly right. That's when they started using it more and more and more, and coming up with all those, more shows. And that drove costs down as more people got interested and more technology advances came around.
By the way, the word of the day over the course of the show, we have a word of the day. It was protagonist, so you just touched on that very, very nicely. I do have one more kind of fine line question for you. Can you kind of let our listeners know if there is any difference between the idea of CGI and animation and special effects? Because there is, because you get to the place where some of the Pixar stuff happens, and you're like, or you watch like The Hobbit, the recent version of The Hobbit, where the Battle of the Five Armies, that ain't people. There ain't nobody there. That's CGI. What's the difference between animation and CGI, if in fact there is one?
It's a fantastic question. And sometimes I actually have to, ask myself, what am I watching here? Because it blends the line. So you kind of get into the nerd end of the question there. Like for us, for me in the industry, the nerd comes out, which is, well, this is animation because of, it was drawn and there are no characters there. So I don't know if this is the, textbook definition, but my definition is animation is there aren't characters there. There's no actor there. Nothing is being augmented. They're actually going from scratch. So that's CGI, computer graphics, that kind of thing. And then, when you get into, Avatar, you get into the Marvel movies, Thanos, by the way, one of my favorite characters. So Thanos, the big bad guy in Endgame and that kind of thing. So what you have there is you have an actor on stage, in that case, Josh Brolin. So he's got these green dots all over him, right? You got green dots so that you can measure, so the cameras can see his facial movements, see the changes, see the emotion. Of course, you're picking up the voice too. You're never really looking at the actor Josh Brolin, but you're seeing all the movements, and that's why it comes through so powerfully. But then they take that, they put into, that's what I would call CGI. Then you're putting an overlay of this sort of purple monster with the wrinkled chin, and he's 8 feet tall, and that kind of thing. And you can think of it there. You can think of it in Deadpool, obviously the Five Armies, with the Hobbit and so forth. So that to me is more CG, where you have something that exists and you're augmenting it. You're adding on to it. Yeah,
that's a great point, because and maybe kind of take that a little bit further, because Claire got a follow up here really quickly. The idea that Brolin's performance is what makes the augmentation happen, whereas in animation, the illustrator's execution is what makes the visual performance happen. Is that fair?
Very, very well said. No, I think you need them to work in harmony, because if you don't have it, Brolin can put in a great performance, say, and the animator doesn't do those overlays and that kind of thing well, because there's a lot of work on making that happen. It's not like, snap a finger and he's now Thanos. There's a lot of lighting, shading.
Wait, he snaps a finger, man. He I'm sorry.
That's so good.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's great. So they have to work in harmony, is what I was going to say. You got to have the great performance. Got to start off with the great script. You got to have the great performance, and then you got to have the great animators or CGI artists on top of it to pull it off.
Well, on the topic of all of the work and all of the different people that it takes, to pull off a project like this, tell us what you guys do over at Rip Media.
Thanks for asking. So we do a lot of what we just said, but we don't happen to do it for those huge movies. Right now, I did produce a couple films, but what happened is this wasn't because of COVID, but years ago I realized those movies take 5 to 10 years to put together, and my attention span is much too short. So what I did is, when I founded Rip Media Group, said, where can we work on smaller, shorter projects? I was like, well, we could do commercials. We could actually go back out to some of these brands that are putting out, your kind of talking head video, and what I would frankly say is typically boring, and say, look, let's animate that, or let's bring this to life with live and animation, and actually make people engage and care about what your story is. Whether it's literally we have folks that have, or we have customers that are, curing breast cancer. We have some of our biotech customers that are doing everything they can to cure COVID. And we're helping the world understand those things with the animation we're putting together. Here's the machine, the testing machine. Here's the treatment. But on the other side, there's plenty of companies we work with. And I think what's cool here is we've got a lot in the transportation industry. The logistics folks, the software folks, and Cheetah Networks and CalAmp, LoJack, iTrade Networks. These guys are delivering, anything from delivering food all over the world through, trains, trucking, and like Core-centric. It's all about trucking. They exist there. And if you don't mind, one of my favorite projects we finished up just, I think it was last year roughly, was about, trucking road rescue. Truckers out there, something breaks down, can't fix it on your own. So, they wanted this whole kind of basic story, hey, we'll come and help out. So we actually started it off. We created the trucker, the character, and we put this voiceover on that was, oh, sure, when you break down, of course, it's somewhere in paradise where you got a Mai Tai in your hand and you're kicking back at a pool, right? So we see this trucker on a floaty with this, umbrella drink, lying there in the sun. And then all of a sudden he wakes up, boom, and we hear he's in the dark. We hear a wolf howl. And then, no, what really happens, you're miles from anywhere and you really need help now. And then, of course, we kick into the rescue story that their truck comes out and helps out. But I always remember that beginning, because it's really important. You got to grab people in the first few seconds, and I always thought that was just a great opener. So that kind of thing. So we're doing,
and it's a great example of how that company probably wouldn't have you got to find a location, and you got to get an actor, and you got to get the props and all the things, right, to make just that couple of seconds if it were live action. But this way, you can make anything possible.
That's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's what I think that's what they went for. We were thinking about that. We put the budgets together side by side, and it was like, now we're going animation. When you like, let's get a truck and this and the location and out in the mountains and then the pool and the resort and all this. All of a sudden, you're at $150,000 on your first day of filming versus animation, which is a tenth of that, or less. They definitely went animation.
There's a reason that we like infographics, right? I love infographics.
Yeah.
I think that they're a very easy way to learn something. You might not get super in-depth with one infographic, but you're going to get the gist of it, and you're going to be satisfied that you can get in-depth, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So you guys, your questions are awesome. Infographics basically is, explaining something that's data and typically people find boring, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's important stuff in there. So what you do is with, infographic, turning information into graphic, what you do is, typically it's not character based. It's going to be more icon. They call it iconic, but icons. I mean, think of a pie chart, think of a bar chart, that kind of thing. So what you can do, and especially with moving infographics, you can show the growth or you can show the trend. You can show a pathway. And again, you can tell a story from beginning to end, which is, here's, whatever, the amount of baseball games going on right now, kind of a thing, and how many hits are happening in 2020 kind of thing. And you can put that together in a graphic way that grabs people's information rather than just stats. Stats
Right.
are boring. And basically I always say that, data strays and stories stay. So data, we're going to forget. You're going to forget all the numbers if I brought any up, but hopefully you'll remember the story, like the Road Quest guy, that we talked about.
Yeah.
The Road Rescue guy talked about, that kind of thing.
Everybody remembers how dinosaurs are created because of the little DNA guy in Jurassic Park saying dinosaurs, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about, essentially.
That's exactly what we're talking about. That's so great. Yes, the little DNA guy laid it all out. I did. That's exactly how I learned.
As far as advertising goes, it does also give you another tonal option, doesn't it? That often there are things that Claire talked about the production demands of doing things live, but along with the production demands, there are certain things you can achieve tonally. And this is a weird connection, so bear with me for 1 second here. I just watched a number of Pixar shorts, and it occurred to me as I was watching these shorts, I said, you know what? I said, Ray Bradbury is suddenly possible to do as something live action because of the techniques that are being used here. In that, it often would fail his movies as movies or his books as sort of television stuff, but it works because it gives you certainly different sorts of tones you can create that other kind of forms don't give you, right?
Very much, very much. So, the sky is literally the limit. You can create anything. And there's actually, if you want to talk about tone, there's different energy levels. You want this to be kind of, lower energy. Maybe it's a brewing love scene, or maybe it's mid energy, or maybe high energy, the action scene. There's an acronym I use, and it's an easy one. It's just called the stuff. So I talk about the stuff. I get it's in my book and the whole thing. What the heck's the stuff? The stuff is it sexy? Is it touching? Is it unique? Is it funny? Or does it deliver fear to the hearts and the minds of the audience? Every scene in every movie, in my opinion, and again, it's not my opinion. I studied all this stuff, and learned as much as I possibly could when I moved out here. How does every scene move forward, and how does it grab us? So is it sexy? Is it, again, sexy isn't just, the love scene or the lingerie ad or something like that. It could just be, hey, this delivers me to some place that's so much better than where I am right now. That's really interesting to me. I'll keep watching that. Touching, put in a baby or a child or, our grandparents, that kind of thing. I mean, touches us. If I tell you the last time I talked to my mother, our ears listen up a little bit, and think about maybe the last time you talked to your mother is the last time, what you're really thinking about, because we all think about how this relates to me, right?
Right.
So it's sexy, touching, unique, something totally off the wall, something goes a complete 180-degree direction, different than what you expected. That is fantastic. That'll grab you. And you're watching, whoa, I didn't expect that. that's totally unexpected, grabs people. So you got to have the shocker moments. And then funny is fantastic to do. It's really hard. Being funny is tough. There's rules to comedy, but you don't go in there with a rule book. You just got to be good at it, and you can learn a whole lot. And then fear is a great one, but there's a lot of, like in advertising, there's a tremendous amount of fear of missing out. Everybody's got this, but you don't. What's going to happen to you next year? How are you going to be looking in 2021? Oh my gosh, I better buy this thing. It's going to make my life better. Whew. Boy, am I smart. I bought that $20 thing that'll sit in the box for a month, but it got you when you were watching.
Maury, you ever heard the great kind of line about every political campaign is run one of two ways? It's either an extortion racket or a bribery scheme. And either it's like, either you do this, so bad things are going to happen, or it's the flip side, which is, hey, man, if you do this, good things are going to happen. and so, in some ways, the question is, are you voting for somebody trying to bribe you or somebody trying to extort you? And that's the question everybody has to ask themselves at the end of the day. We're going to run out of time here, so I'm going to ask a boon of you. We got about 5 minutes left in this segment. Would you be willing to stick around for 5 more minutes over the hard break so that when we come back, we can talk about all the great stuff that you guys are doing over there and some of the great projects you have cooking? Is that okay?
I would love to. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. So Claire's got a question for you.
In the meantime, I'm sure that you have a great story about how you got into animation, how you got into being a producer and all of that. I wondered if you could tell us.
Sure. So, many, many moons ago when I was a kid, I was a problem. I was the one that was always stuck to the TV and woke up at 6 a.m. on set. And I couldn't wake up at 10 before 10, for school. I was late every day. But Saturday, I was up at 6 with my bowl of Captain Crunch. Plug. Sorry, Captain.
That's okay. We had an entire show about that. You're fine. Welcome to the adult version of Saturday morning cereal. You're in good shape.
I'm expecting that box of Captain Crunch at my door. So, I wake up and I'd be Sugar Rush and I'd watch till 1 in the afternoon when they stop. So I always loved animation, always loved cartoons, have no idea how they were made. And I went off and, kind of into the world, and I went into business. And things were great for a while, and then when they crashed hard for me. So I lost house, the fiance at the time,
Wow.
Everything, every ounce that I had, and actually owed more than I had. And then digging myself out of that hole, I was like, well, what am I going to do this time? I'm certainly not giving up. I'm going to go do something that I always wanted to do, because what the hell, I have zero, so start again. So pick up, move to Hollywood, and learn everything I possibly can about that childhood dream. And that's what I did. So I came out here, and so now I'm in Hollywood, and I did everything I could, like, can I buy you a coffee? Can I do, like, anybody? You're an actor. You're a voiceover actor. I talked to the voice of Bender, the robot, on
Nice.
yeah. So
It's the one voice I can't do. I can't do his voice. I don't know how he does that. I don't know how he does it.
Well, I think it's actually just pretty natural.
Oh, okay.
That's just what he sounds like.
It's like, yeah, it's pretty close. Yeah, I can totally see. I'm sitting here talking to Bender is what it felt like. So producers, directors, like, all right, there's a path I can see, and let me see if I can work this out. So I dove in. I got together with a group of new friends, and we put our first movie together. Now, again, at the time, it was I'm doing 5 things. Sort of working here, making some money, so that I can support the habit now of let's make the first movie. And who can I get to help me out here? Can I raise money? Can I do that? Yeah, it turns out I could. Not it wasn't easy, but let's raise some funds. Let's put this movie together. I also did stand-up comedy. I was also writing. I mean, I did 5 things at once, which is kind of the story out here. Most folks used to be called, writers, and really they were waiters, right? And that's really how it would go.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I dove in, and that first movie went well. I was like, man, I love this. And then, we did the second movie, and now we're 5 years down the road. I was like, God, I love this process, but I don't love the 5 years. What can I do? And I started talking to some of the people on set. What are you doing next? And here's the answer. Anything, man. What do you got? And I was like, what? You're the director of this film. What do you mean? I thought you had things lined up. Hey, when their job is done, we have no idea what's coming next. We got to go hunt. I was like, okay.
We know what's coming next. We know what's coming next. Our break is coming up here, so hold on tight, guys. We're going to be back. Well, he's so graciously agreed to join us. We can't thank you enough for hanging around a little bit because we got some great offers, and we want to finish this story as well, too.
You plucked that segue right out of my pink little brain, Jimmy Mack. Good one.
Thank you very much.
We're talking with Maury Rogow. He is a digital pioneer and the founder and CEO of LA's RIP Media Group. Check him out, ripmediagroup.com, or head to radionemo.com, and they're linked in today's promos.
All right, hold on tight. Oh, I like that. That's nice.
Phantom of the Paradise.
Phantom of the Paradise. Not animated, but I think it deserves a nice revisiting as an animated feature. I think
that
Phantom
would
of the
not
Paradise.
be bad, would it?
I mean, after all, Paul Williams wrote the music, so that'd be kind of crazy. You know?
Maybe Maury Rogow can work on that with RIP Media Group. Welcome back, Maury.
We could actually do some partnering.
Thank you.
We could get our friend Michael Cerverus to play the Phantom, and we get Maury to animate it. We could do a whole thing. We're cutting a deal here, guys. Cutting a deal here, making it happen. It's our elevator pitch. When we last left our intrepid explorers here on Dave Nemo Weekends, we were talking about how a person goes from waiting and writing, and how suddenly a business comes to being. Can you give us the last little details on that before going off to the cool stuff you're doing and some of your loves of cartooning?
Yeah, thank you. So, it came down to, hey, we're kind of telling other people's stories. I'd rather tell my own, right? I've got a lot of things that happen in my life and that I see in the world and my own take on things. Let me see what I can do here. So we put a crew together, and basically that was sort of, quote, the rest is history. And, let's tell our own story. So we started doing that. And then I started reaching out to some of these brands and said, hey, can we tell your story, but in a different way than you're doing it right now? And they liked it. And then, and honestly, this started off with the most simple of animation. It was actually whiteboard animation, which is that hand-on, sort of hand-on canvas or hand-on, literally a whiteboard with a marker that we were filming. And then I got a great artist. Like, I sketched it out. I was like, here's the story I want to tell about this character. We pitched it to a customer. They said, we love it. Can we do more of those? And that year we went from, I have an idea to we had 100 projects. It was incredible. So I was like, I think I hit something here. This is good. So then we, kind of branched out from there. So, all right, I got the whiteboard thing down. We can do that. How about I branch into deeper animation? Let's do some 2D work, and then let's bump up to 3D. And so we're now a mix of, some live with a lot of animation projects. Probably 80% of what we do is animated, and that, luckily, worked out well this year when live stuff stopped happening. So we're telling stories all the time in animation.
I have a weird question just that I'm going to sneak in here. So when it comes to being an animation artist, now I understand that there's so many different styles and types of animation, different technologies, but and this is going to sound stupid, do you need to be able to draw? Or is some of it kind of like not computer generated in the CGI sense, but like computer assisted or automated somehow?
It's a great question. So the answer is no, you don't need to be an artist to be an animator. And when we started off, 10 years ago, it was sort of an all-in-one. The artist had to be an animator, more for us, because I didn't understand the industry and that kind of thing and how to really make things happen. I was figuring it out. But now, after a while, we've got two things. One is we have really talented animators that aren't the best artists. In fact, some of them aren't artists at all, but they can take what an artist gives them. So we now have great artists, so they can draw the characters or sketch a character, that kind of thing. Somebody else finishes the art that they started and maybe colors it, does that refining sketch and the refining look of the outline and adds backgrounds and things like that. Then we give it to the animator who then, it's pretty cool, they call it rigging. You literally give the character a skeleton and movement. Here's how they're going to walk. Here's how they're going to run. Here's how they're going to act. And kind of match to their personality and that kind of thing. And then stick them in the world. And believe it or not, it actually, at a 30,000 view, it looks like you're making a live action thing because you create the world and then you send the camera through it, which is really pretty neat. So you create this whole world, and then you have the camera crew. What angle do we want here? But the camera crew, quote, is your animator, right? Or here, animator and director working together. How do we want this to look? So the quick answer is definitely. You can not be able to draw. I can't. I can do pretty good stick figures and some sketches, but I can get the idea across enough as to, here, great artist, can you take these little sketches I did on the back of a napkin and make this into something? Because I want this look, this angle, this story being told, and they do it. And what we really need is them to get better along the line, if we can, by guiding them with some direction.
So if you had to compare, like, the role of the actual animator, and I do appreciate an industry that lets you be one thing as opposed to, like, they say, like, an architect in other countries is the guy who designs the thing. Now it's in America, it's like an architect needs to know how to build the whole, like, do the whole show, right?
Right.
So as far as the rigging and actually, giving the character the skeleton and getting the camera in there and kind of, I would assume it's a little bit of programming too. Like if you had to compare the animator's role to another job that everyone kind of knows about, what would you say?
I'd probably compare it to construction. I mean, I like what you said about the architect. You know what I mean? Like the architect and the drywaller are different folks, typically, right? So they're going to finish the drywall, the painting, and that kind of stuff. I mean, think about it. The house. You walk in there. What do you see? You see the last 5%, right? Right. Walking in, like, I see the architectural plans, like your Neo in the Matrix or something. What you're actually seeing is the paint on the wall, the fixtures, the countertop, whatever. That last 5-10% is really what people see, before you dig down and find out this thing is really well built or it's not. So, that animator, the artist, that those last touches, and this literally can be sound design and things like that. That's the finished product, and that's what everybody looks at. But there's years of work, before that you don't see sort of behind the scenes. So to simplify things, there are programs out there that make things really easy to animate. So, I mean, if you wanted to, basically, if you want to create an animation today, very, very basic. One of the things that we found over the years was a lot of folks that we talked to, I mean, like 90% of the folks we talked to didn't end up going with us in particular because of budget, because it's expensive to do some of these things. So for the past 3 years, I created software so that anybody can go in and create an animation. Anybody can go in and create, some simple, they're actually, these are $10,000 and $15,000 projects, but I took them and I put them in these templates so people can go in, put different names in, choose some different characters and things like that. And it's free. I'm giving it away right now to get people to care about animation and telling a cool story. And, you can send a card out to your mom for her birthday or whatever. Last second is good because it takes about a minute to do these. So there's programs like that. That thing's called the Video Bot, like the video robot, the Video Bot. And there's some other programs out there that people can dive into quick. And what's neat about this next generation is kids have apps on their phones that do animations. And I've seen a couple of them like, oh my God, what's going to happen to me in 5 years? I got the fear, right? the fear of missing out. Whoa, kid, you just animated that. And, it's like a little nephew. I'm like, okay, I better learn about this because, are we going to fall behind? And I'm not going to let that happen. We got to learn about all the new programs that are coming out and, Facebook filters and Instagram and these things. I can turn myself into, a rabbit if I want to in a second on Facebook. I mean, it's crazy.
Oh, those are freaky, huh? And that they're just a front so that the government has, like, all of our faces.
And welcome to Coast, the morning edition.
You'll know I'm right.
By the way, guess what?
How do we get the Video Bot? Is it on ripmediagroup.com?
Oh, actually, it's separate. Yeah, that's separate. Thank you for asking. Actually, it's just thevideobot.com. Just go to thevideobot.com. Yeah, and I'll put a link down there. I'll put a link on Rip Media Group, too, so folks can find it.
Awesome. We're going to put a link on our Facebook page as well, over at our Dave Nemo Weekends Facebook page.
Actually, guess what? You're going to end up closing out the show. We're taking a quick break here to get some weather in before we run out of time. We're going to come back, ask you a quick question about some of your comic and cartoon heroes. Guys, we'll be right back with a weather report. Boldly. We have boldly gone for almost an hour talking to Mr. Rogow.
Welcome back
Great to be
again,
here.
Maury.
Thank you.
So let's go with that final question. You are a lover of cartoons. You are a lover of animation. You're a lover of the weird, the wonderful, and the wild. Who are some of your touchstone points in regards to cartoons?
The touchstone points are the characters that I love.
Characters.
Can I tell you about some characters? Yeah. So I'm just going to say this. Look, I'm coming to you from a dad lens, and if I don't say the answer that I'm going to give you, I'm going to be killed by a 3-year-old later today. So Wally, because she's waking up right now in the other room. So Wally is my favorite character. I'm going to try to say and so Wally's my favorite character. There we go. And now the reason is, and honestly, there's a lot of good reasons for it. The dude says about 3 words. And everything about this character, if you remember the movie, it's about 10 years ago, but if you remember the movie, he only says his, wannabe girlfriend's name and a couple of other things, but we literally fall in love with this character because he's basically a junk. He's a trash man. He's a trash collector, and but he goes into this big space adventure and changes humanity forever and all this kind of stuff. But we just fall in love with him. It's those Disney eyes, right? And that we can all relate to this character in one way. So they did a great job with that. But going back further, my fave has got to be Bugs Bunny. There's Bugs Bunny. There's Tasmanian Devil. Always loved him. Wile E. Coyote was great. And then, kind of up to date, really, we talked about CGI and animation. I actually love the character of Thanos. We talked about him in Marvel because he's not just a bad guy to be a bad guy. He's not a bad guy to win $1 billion. He's not a bad guy just because he's bad. He thinks he's doing something really good for the universe. I know that it's kind of kooky to get into here, but it's a really good character. They brought him together well. So I was like, yeah, he's half bad, but he's half got good intentions, and that is a complex character to bring together. And I thought that was really well done.
That's a real larger-than-life character, too. And by the way, one of the best things I ever heard about Wall-E, for those people who haven't seen it, is that someone wrote that it's the greatest performance on a level since Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin. That it actually has the same sort of remarkable, how can you hold somebody for an hour without using a single word? And that it all basically comes down to just using expressive eyes and moving through pratfall to pratfall and eventually ending up getting the girl, the gold watch, and everything. It's just a classic Chaplin story.
That is so well said. That is so well said, yes.
The other really cool thing you brought up a couple of good points in there as well. The Bugs Bunny stuff is so resonant for so many people because they really like that character. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. The idea that he never starts it. He is never the instigator of the event. It's basically leave me alone and everything will be fine. But once somebody does it, the famous line is, "Of course this means war," and it doesn't stop until it's done.
That's right. That's exactly right. He doesn't stop until he wins. The guy is tenacious, but it keeps you smiling the whole way through. And that's so well said. Yeah, the Barber Seville, or I should have taken a left at Albuquerque, and then he runs into a hunter. What's he going to do with Elmer Fudd? Well, he's going to live. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. By the way, let me see. Your favorite cartoon characters are a silent hero who gets the girl, the gold watch, and everything. A guy who leaves people alone until they mess with him, and then he destroys them. And then a villain who only wants to improve the world. What does it say about you, sir? What does it say about you?
That's another segment, Jimmy Mac.
Yeah, we'll have to bring you back for that.
On a sofa and tell you my story now. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, is anything we should be looking for from you guys? You got anything else going on before we say thank you so much for spending the entire morning with us?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So, we're always coming out with new things. Rip Media Group, with the brand stories, really fun animations and some really useful stuff right now. I'd love for people to check out the video bot. You guys got to go direct to the site, and hopefully you'll check out that link. Start making some videos. Just go ahead. Literally, it's free. For now it is, but I'm going to extend it to anybody that joins in the next few days for you guys. And then, coming soon, actually, we already finished, but filming a course on how to tell a great story, how to create great videos, how to tell a great brand story in movies. So, it's me and it's, my team, and we put this whole thing together, and we're using clips of, the movies, everything from Star Wars to our own work, here's how you tell a great story. And I think this next generation of storytellers out there, it's going to be really interesting. And it's, the basics are all there from Shakespeare to today, how to tell a great story. So I'm putting that out, but it's going to be interesting the take of this new generation coming up. What are they going to be talking about? What's going to be the big things that, in their lives that they're going to be translating to screen in the next 5-10 years. So I'd love to be a part of it and help people out.
Cool. Now, is that's coming on ripmediagroup.com?
That'll be on ripmediagroup.com, yeah.
Okay, great.
I can't thank you enough, sir. We would have you stay over another hour, but we're done. This is the end of the show, and you actually helped us close it out. So thank you so much for your time today, man. You're welcome back anytime. If you got anything else cooking or going, and you just want to come back here and shoot the breeze, you are welcome as our guest.
Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure. You guys are fantastic.
All righty.
All our best. Thank you. Maury Rogow, ripmediagroup.com. Of course, that's linked on today's promos, both on our Facebook page and at radionemo.com. And if you want that free video bot thingamajigger, it's thevideobot.com. The thingamajigger is silent in the web address. It's just thevideobot.com.